The Las Vegas Raiders have a critical decision to make. The history of the organization continues to haunt them as they meet with the top defensive prospect in the NFL draft. We also have an update on Josh Jacobs' contract situation with the Raiders. More quarterbacks are meeting with the Raiders. What is going to happen? And apparently one meeting with a specific quarterback went really well, and there's a possibility this guy falls to the Raiders. My name is WiFiWillie. We break down Raiders news almost every single freaking day. Make sure you subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the next video. So this date has been scheduled for some time. Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle from the Georgia Bulldogs, meeting with the Las Vegas Raiders. He is in the facility right now having a top 30 visit with the Raiders. They're going to find out what this guy is like, and they really need to break down this guy's personality and see how much he loves football. That's really the main thing here. We know that there were some reports earlier by The Athletic of Vic Tafur that the Raiders would not be interested in Jalen Carter because of the rug situation that happened, and we know that Jalen Carter got in trouble this past year for reckless driving. He ended up getting just a couple misdemeanor charges though and paying a fine, and is now having to do community service, so not too crazy. All his legal issues are now behind him technically. But the big issue with Jalen Carter, aside from these legal problems, is the fact that at the Georgia Pro Day, a lot of people said he looked lazy, he was 10 pounds overweight, he could barely even finish some of the drills, and a lot of people are wondering, hey, is this guy depressed? Does this guy love football? Does he really want to do it? Yes, he's talented. Yes, he is arguably the most talented player in the entire NFL draft when you're comparing both sides of the football. He's definitely the most talented defensive player, and the Raiders have a huge need at defensive tackle. And really, the Raiders have had a need at defensive tackle for several years. Really, that we really haven't had anybody since Richard Seymour or Tommy Kelly at defensive tackle completely dominating. So Jalen Carter would really complete this defense for the Raiders. I think he instantly makes the Raiders a much better defense, especially given the fact that we already have some great edge rushers. We signed some cornerbacks on some good deals, signed a safety as well in Marcus Epps. So I think the Raiders should seriously consider this guy, but they have to figure out if this guy's mind is right. Even though what happened with the incident, the reckless driving incident, was not entirely his fault. Basically, a staff official who was one of his friends with the Georgia Bulldogs and an offensive lineman were in a car together. The driver, she was drunk. She ended up getting in an accident when they were joking around, horsing around, and it ended up ending her life as well as the offensive lineman who was Jalen Carter's teammate. You know, it was his teammate. Jalen Carter, you know, he was allegedly driving backwards, driving crazy. We don't know if he was under the influence of alcohol because he left the scene. He left the scene, so the police were not able to test him. Either way, those legal issues are behind him, and this could either be a wake-up call for Jalen Carter, where maybe now he realizes, hey, I gotta really get it together. I can't ever be having any gray area where I'm horsing around. I gotta take this NFL crap seriously. Or maybe he's gonna brush this aside and think, hey, I got away from it. Those legal issues are behind me, and now who cares? I'm a top prospect. Somebody come draft me. And I think what made him look really bad was the fact that he said, hey, I'm not gonna have a top 30 visit with the team unless you're picking within the top 10. So a lot of people thought that made him come off as arrogant, not a team player. We'll find out. We'll find out, and hopefully the Raiders are able to get into this guy's mind and make the right decision. And it really does seem realistic that the Raiders could grab Jalen Carter. I mean, think about it. They're picking at number 7. You got QB, Will Anderson. That's what everyone's mocking to the Cardinals. They need an edge rusher. QB for the Colts. And then the Seahawks. The Seahawks have signed 2 defensive tackles already. They already have Jones from the Broncos, Jerron Reed. You got a 2-year fully guaranteed deal, and then you also have like a 3-year fully guaranteed deal for Jones. So they've spent too much money on D-tackle. Jalen Carter, they would not be able to make room for the guy, and they kind of messed up because they could have grabbed Jalen Carter. And the Detroit Lions, they could seriously grab Jalen Carter. I mean, they could grab a corner. They did sign some free agents, but I think the Raiders, if they really wanted Jalen Carter, you're going to try to trade up with the Seahawks, who are most likely going to grab Tyree Wilson. I actually did a fan mock draft on my channel if you want to check it out. And yeah, the Seahawks did not take Jalen Carter, and neither did the Lions. They took Peter Skoronski, but Lions, I could see them getting Carter, so I think the Raiders would definitely need to trade up. But another big question for the Raiders is the quarterback position too important to pass up? Will somebody fall? Now, if Jalen Carter's there, you have maybe an Anthony Richardson on the board, a Will Levis. Can you really pass that up? Especially if somebody like CJ Stroud or Bryce Young falls, it's game over. The Raiders are definitely going to pick one of those QBs. But we got Hendon Hooker, somebody who could maybe be available in the second round. The Raiders have pick number 38 as well. Ian Rappaport talking about how Hooker is visiting the Lions along with the Bucks and is set to visit the Raiders as well. So if Jalen Carter's not there, I don't think you take Hendon Hooker at number 7. I think you try to trade back if you really want him over somebody like Will Levis, over somebody like Anthony Richardson. But Anthony Richardson, is this guy like fully out of the picture? We're gonna really act like there's no chance the Raiders draft Anthony Richardson? Because there's been some reports, not only this report here, but you also have the Tom Pelissero. Yes, Tom Pelissero, in addition to the ESPN article I just flashed on the Rich Eisen show, believes the Raiders really do like Anthony Richardson.
And the Raiders had spent a lot of time with him. They took him out to dinner the night before. They're bringing him in for a visit as well.
So just to make a long story short, Tom Pelissero goes out of his way to say that the Raiders really like Anthony Richardson. They spent a lot of time with him. We did a video showing Dave Ziegler going up to him, hyping him up at his pro day. But the big story here is the fact that Tom Pelissero goes on to say that Anthony Richardson is a guy who's not close. He's not close, really. He's only played like, what, 12 games in his whole entire life as a quarterback. And so he's going to need time. He's going to need time to develop. And then Pelissero goes on to say that, the Raiders would be a great place for that because Jimmy Garoppolo's contract with Pelissero, highlights, which I tried to highlight, and a lot of you guys jumped on my ass down in the comments when I tried to tell you guys this when Jimmy G was first signed, that it's really a 2-year contract. Yes, it's you can get out of it after 1 year, but you're going to eat almost $10 million in dead money if you get out of it after 1 year. So in my opinion, it's a 2-year contract, and that is what Tom Pelissero is saying. So Anthony Richardson, could he study under Jimmy G and Brian Hoyer for 2 years and then become an elite quarterback? Could genius Josh McDaniels, who thinks that he could turn a high school QB into an all-pro, can he turn Richardson into an all-pro? Looks like they're interested in that being a possibility. Real quick in the comments, if Anthony Richardson and Jalen Carter are there at pick 7, let me know who you were drafting, Raider Nation. And we have a story by Vincent Bosignor, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and this is something that's been lurking in the background. It's about Josh Jacobs, man, and the fact that the Raiders and Josh Jacobs remain in a contract holding pattern. This has been an issue that's been going on. Jacobs wants a new long-term contract. The unfortunate situation that Vincent Bosignor highlights, and this is common knowledge around the NFL, is the fact that, we saw Saquon Barkley get franchise tagged. We saw the same thing happen with Tony Pollard. Cowboys, new star running back, now that they freaking kicked Zeke to the curb. Well, Josh Jacobs is in a rough position because running backs are not getting paid. You've seen Miles Sanders not get that much money from the Eagles. You've seen running backs take pay cuts around the NFL. Josh Jacobs is in a tough situation, getting paid roughly over $10 million this upcoming year on the franchise tag, but he wants a long-term contract. We'll see what happens. And the Raiders may be reluctant to have a long-term contract with Jacobs, and they're probably going to figure something out after the draft. That's the projection here. I think the worst way that this could possibly end is that Jacobs just straight up holds out and demands a trade from a team that will pay him, maybe a team that needs some more superstars to sell some tickets. That's the only type of team I see paying big money for a running back. Or the best case scenario would be that Jacobs plays on the tag and the Raiders renegotiate a team-friendly contract after the season. That would be the best case scenario for the Raiders. For Jacobs, the best case scenario, all in all, is that the Raiders pay him #1 running back money in the NFL. You let me know what you would do. And we know there was a big UFC fight that happened the other day, and you have the former president hanging out right here, and you have another guy in the background behind the former president hanging out, and it's none other than edge defender for the Las Vegas Raiders, team captain Max Crosby, hanging out, becoming the star that he is, hanging out with even the former president, but he is getting some flack, and you see them highlighting Max Crosby. Some people replying to this tweet here, making fun of his little outfit. It looks like pajamas, some people are saying, but all in all, I mean, he is getting sort of attacked just for being in the presence of controversial, I guess, former president, but cool to see Max Crosby hanging out and having a good time at a UFC fight. Last video was awesome. We had more people subscribe. If you really want us to make more videos, make sure you subscribe to let us know. That is the only way we can find out if you want more content from me. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.